because last week I ran out of disk space on 2 devices. I can't believe it. Right, and standing by. Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sonic Talk number 2. No, it's not 276, it's 278. I must get on to my lower third people. They didn't get that together at all. Recording today, live on Wednesday, what is the date today? It's the 8th of August, 2012, and we've got a fulsome chat room and a fulsome panel. So I want to thank everybody for joining us and thank everybody for listening. Last week, of course, we had Mr. Darren Price from Underworld, which was a very interesting... an interesting and enlightening program about the Olympic opening ceremony and the music and the tech that went into that. So if you get a chance, go back and listen to that. And this week we've got another guest, actually, a sort of, I guess we'd call him a Sonic Talk virgin, but in the nicest possible way. But what I'm going to do before I do that, I think I'll introduce everybody else and then I'll play your video and then we'll introduce you. How's that for a tease? That sounds pretty good.
That's a good tease.
That is a good tease, right. So, first of all, we'll say hi to Mr. Rich Hilton, who's there in sunny Connecticut, back home, finally. How long are you back for?
The foreseeable future.
Ah, so are you all kind of done and kind of just... Your touring days for a while are a little over. Is that good?
Yeah, I'm happy to be home.
Yeah, I know, it must be good. You have a lot of fun? I noticed you were tweeting pictures of Ireland and what have you. Yes,
I had a great time.
I'm really glad to hear that.
Met some unbelievably enthusiastic audiences.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, I hope you have a restful time and all your jet lag is over as soon as it possibly can be. But thank you very much for joining. Of course, Rich has been on the road with Chic, I should mention. Chic, the legendary disco band, and is presumably back in the studio with Noel Rodgers, where he mans the controls for his private facility out there in the US of A. And we'll also say hello to Mark Tinley. If Mark can talk, then I will get him. I will assign him a square in our little celebrity square thing. Mark Tinley,
talking and being on celebrity squares. That sounds.
There you go. Mark Tinley, lightbeing.com, creative thinker and sound artist with your very good flesh tone on that new webcam. I have to say, you're looking very rosy and healthy and not at all...
No, it's Gina's birthday present computer that I'm on today.
Ah, yes, of course. I remember you saying that. That sounded a bit like buying the wife a Black & Decker.
Yes.
But I know she's very
right
technical.
Now you've got me in trouble because she's standing right here.
She's very technically minded. I know she's... so I'm sure she's very cool about that anyway. So I'm sure she loved the present too. She's
there you go. She's laughing.
Oh my God, she can hear me. Hi, Gina. Hello. Anyway, Mark, thank you for joining us as well. I'm glad you could make it. I know in these busy school holiday times, it's very tricky. In fact, my daughter was sitting over there until just a few moments ago. So I managed to palm her off with a few flash games. What's it called? Friv.com is the one, apparently. Okay. If you're into all of that to me. Anyway, Mark, thank you very much for joining us. And also, we're going to go to Gaz Williams, who's back from Japan, where he was out with... Well, tell us what you were doing, Gaz, and I can switch to you in my Celebrity Square switching matrix.
I was networking, really, I think. That was my main...
There he is.
Yeah, I was networking. That was my kind of reason for going over there. I had some great opportunities, so... I went over for some meetings and to just to get to visit Japan, which that was for the first time for me, and I was really, really taken with the place.
Yeah.
I know Rich is a big fan of the Japanese, and I can completely concur. It's such a wonderful, wonderful place, and the people were just so wonderful. I had a wonderful time. And I went to the Fuji Rock Festival whilst I was there as well, and that was incredible. I had an amazing festival. Really cool.
Brilliant. Well, I'm very glad to hear that, Gaz. And thank you very much also for tweeting your first twit pic, which was a picture of a high-tech Japanese toilet. Did it live up to everything you expected it to? We had to ask because we were wondering at the time whether it fulfilled your needs.
Oh, yeah, it was amazing. stupid, really, but I was so excited about trying it out the toilet. I just didn't know what all them controls could possibly do. Of course, I had to sort of sit there and work them all out.
I don't think I want to know what all of them do, but yeah, I'm glad it worked for you anyway, Gaz.
Oh yeah, you do.
All right.
Don't the Japanese have a thing about background noise while they're going to the toilet? I don't think we're...
I really don't know, but perhaps I was going to do a link there, and you'll love this one. So I'm essentially from one piece of Japanese technology to two more pieces of Japanese technology, and I will play an introductory video, and then we'll talk to our special guest. And if you saw this was the Juno 2012, which is two Juno 106s kind of put together in a fabulous case, reminding me very much of a sort of Prophet 10 type vibe, and beautifully lit and shot there, if I may say so, Mr. Alan Dicker. Just... I've got a Juno 106, and I was really thrilled. There's lots of different modes that this can work in. I'm sure Alan will be able to tell us a bit about it.
Do my best.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to switch to now. Now I'm going to bring you in. We have indeed Mr. Alan Dicker, who is the man who made this this fabulous device, and it really is. I have to say, it's a work of genius. It actually looks like it was meant to be. What was it that kind of? Where did it come from? Come on, tell us how it came about.
Well, I had a Juno 106. And a few bits of it were poorly, and it could have done with some new bits here and there. So I went to eBay, which is the place to go for these things these days, it seems, to look for an old broken one for parts. And I managed to find one for about £90 I paid for it.
Wow.
Got it back home, and it wasn't quite as broken as I was led to believe, and it seemed a shame to just chop it up for parts. And then I just thought, what if I put both of them together?
Wow.
So, because one of the keyboards on one of them was gone, and the chorus circuitry on the other one needed looking at and whatnot. So I thought I'd put them all together, run it all through the chorus of one of the machines, and hook it up with the MIDI Sysex, which is the system exclusive inside it, which is designed very well in the Juno 106 to be able to do that, to hook two of them up.
Oh, really? So you... I mean, this is the one thing that I wanted to know about it. I mean, we'll have some input from other people as well. So do you have to have the same programs in both, or do they just dump to each other, if you see what I mean? Because that's the thing, because they are separate entities, effectively, aren't they?
They're separate entities inside the box. I've hardwired MIDI across the CPU boards inside. And I can load from the master unit to the slave unit, which is the unit higher up to the back of the machine.
Right.
I can't bring programs down from that one to the front, but I can still load programs, any program I want, into each machine. And what makes it quite useful is, you've got on the back a program switch, performance switch, that goes into 3 modes. Using that, we can load the same patches to both units or individual patches to each unit. So a complementary patch can be on the slave unit that goes with the master unit. It gets confusing. But yeah.
I see. So does the system exclusive work on a edit buffer basis, or is it actually just actually write it straight into memory when you dump it that way?
Well, no, it's not. It's not a question of dumping. It's live. So if I move a slide on the front one, it affects the back one as well, if I have the program switch in the correct position for that to happen.
Oh, awesome! I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So it's almost like control, CC MIDI messages, but a bit predates it a bit.
That's just absolutely. I've got a Juno 106 here, which is a bit poorly actually. It's got a dead voice, or more than one dead voices, and because you kind of is what. You describe yourself as, let me see how, a specialist music composition, sound design, and also synthesizer technician and modifier. I mean, are you kind of the guy who fixes everybody's synths locally for your community?
I try to be, yeah. I haven't got a huge community here, to be honest with you, but I've got a few clients that come to me with different things. I've got a chap, if you know Ott, any of his music.
No, I'm not familiar with it, but... Is he a Juno 106 user?
Korg Monopoly of his I'd modified and repaired for him.
Oh, really?
And TB303 as well.
What do you do to a Korg Monopoly? Because I've got one of those too. I think they're fantastic synthesizers.
I made Oscillator 1 be mixable with the LFO so that you can modulate the filter frequency or the pitch with Oscillator 1, kind of similar to the effects section, but it's quite different.
So it gives you a much higher frequency range of the oscillator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. I think this is a wonderful device. So what's the kind of, you've got one Juno 106.
Yeah.
It looks like two Juno 106s is a much more significant synthesizer. What's the kind of the biggest sort of surprise that you found by putting them together?
The most basic surprise is that obviously the 106 is a single oscillator per voice synth. So they give you that big rolling chorus to fatten that up a lot. But if you've got two oscillators, you can detune them, and that's like the classic sound we all enjoy in synthesizers. So that's one benefit there. The other benefit is custom circuitry I built in there to have polyphonic modulation of the filter of the master unit from the audio output of the slave unit, which opens up the kind of sounds you can make into like bell ringing FM sounds and vocal sounds.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make it more than just having two Junos together. I wanted to expand the kind of sounds you could make with it as well.
Nice, Mark. I detect that you perhaps have a special love. Were you a fan of the Juno 106? Is slap bang in the middle of my sort of programming life. I'm guessing it might well be in yours too.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's in the middle of mine as well. But it didn't work in the same way as an SH101, which was at the beginning of mine, perhaps. So there's I think the JX3P probably works more like an SH101, and I never quite got my head around. Although having said that, an SH101's only got one oscillator as well, but I never quite got my head around something about the architecture of the 106. I think it was the high pass filter or something was just beyond like where I was at that particular time. But while we were opening the show, I did watch the video, and about halfway through the video, I sat there and I thought, that's starting to sound like it's in prophet territory, like those bell tones. And I was thinking, I've used 106 millions of times, and they're very good for bass lines, and that is like kind of the classic house bass line sound, isn't it? So that kind of sub end of it, and I've never really heard one going into that bell territory. And then I was thinking, I've probably tried to program things like that on it, and I couldn't get my head quite round how you were doing it, and thought there must be something special going on. So, I mean, you're basically your frequency modulating one of the 106s with the other one. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm modulating the filter. Yeah.
I mean, it brought the whole thing to life for me.
Yeah, well, it makes it much more interesting if you can have that many more sounds, doesn't it? It was inspired by the Prophet 5, because I've a Prophet 5 Rev 2, which sits just below it on the keyboards, and that's got that brilliant polymod section where you can modulate the pitch and the filters. Now, I couldn't modulate the pitch of the 106 because it's digital oscillators, and you have to go through the CPU to affect the pitch. As the filter is purely analog, I could just tap into those circuits and keep it all analog.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a whole lot more than just two synths sitting next to each other. You've cross-patched a few things as well.
Cross-patched it and modulated it.
Oh, wow, awesome.
Yeah.
Rich Hilton, are you? Have you used Juno 106? Is that something that's in your kind of arsenal of fond synthesizers?
Sure. Great synth.
I'm just wondering, Alan, as well. What did you actually kind of? Well, now you've made it and you put it online, and it's sort of like you're using it as a kind of calling card to your services.
Yeah.
What's actually happened as a result? I mean, have people gone, "Can I buy that? I want that one. Can I buy it?" I mean, what's sort of happening with that whole thing? Because I imagine, I immediately thought I want one of those. I probably could never afford it, but I would love to have one.
Yeah. Well, I have had, inquiries and whatnot based on the 106 and for other synths. The only problem I've really had with the 106 is not only does someone have to find two 106s, they have to get them to me. So if they're in like a Mac or something, you've got to post two 106s to me, and then I can put them together. Then you've got to post a larger bespoke synth back to you, so the price starts to add up there.
Yeah, the shipping, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you want to cover it with insurance and all the rest of it. So I mean, I offer that for between sort of around about the 600 mark. So it's about the price of another Juno again.
All right. So I mean, that's just for you to build two into a case, right? In the same way that you've done there.
Yeah, if you've bought me two synthesizers, two Junos, it cost you 600 for me to put them together into a case.
That's. I mean, that sounds eminently reasonable. I mean, the external costs are nothing you can personally do about it, but that sounds like something that I would just love to have one of those things. Gaz, I'm detecting that you have I mean, look at the picture of it. Isn't it beautiful? Gaz, is Gaz there? Oh, I can see him, but I can't hear him.
He's looking very puzzled.
Hello?
Yeah, are you there? Have we lost you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Oh, no, but he's gone. So what's next then, Alan? Have you got something else up your sleeve?
Well, always thinking of new things to do and new modifications. I'm actually sort of looking into producing kits that people can put into their own synthesizers, like the Prophet 5 doing a 5 separate voice out kit and things like that, or a little miniature mixer board that you could build in there. So you could pan the voices around like you do in the old Oberheims and those large OB12s and whatnot.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
So just sort of modify. I wonder how many Juno 106s there are out there. Have you got any kind of sense of that? I mean, I have no idea how many they made. I'm guessing there were a fair few thousand, because it was one of the first sort of affordable polys.
Well, it was a budget synthesizer, so I'm sure they made a large run of them, and I always see them coming up on eBay. Obviously, I've always got my eyes out to stick another couple together and sell that resulting synth as well. So yeah, I think there's quite a large production run on them. Nothing like the X7 level, but you know.
No, I guess not. But yeah, beautiful work, and I'm guessing, you know.
I've noticed something.
Oh yes, go, Mark.
Yeah,
I've noticed something recently, and I don't know if anyone else has. I sort of thought I might get back into making some acid house tracks, and then I thought, I wonder how much 303s go for on eBay. So I whacked 303 on eBay, and I discovered there's something called an XOXOX box, which is basically people have taken the circuit board from the 303 and re-etched it and made a copy of it. They collect up all the components together, blow the EPROMs into a new set of EPROMs and basically build you an exact clone of a 303. And 303s are selling for about 12, 13, 14, 1,500 pounds,
yeah,
right? But the XOXO, whatever box it is, they're selling for just over £300 with someone having built one, or you can buy it as a kit for somewhat less. But I'm thinking, I guess some of these things, I mean, there must be some copyright on Roland's proprietary kind of circuitry and everything. But
did they not open source the 303? I had a feeling they open source the circuit board, because I had a feeling that they did, actually, for the really older stuff. Could be wrong. Often am.
I mean, but given that, there's loads of these things turning up on eBay and they're selling, and I talked to somebody about making one for me, and he said, well, I've made 15 this month and I've only got one left, so you better be quick. And then he said, actually, sorry, I had to sell that, but I'll be making some more next month. So if there's a demand for those, for other classic Roland synths to put them in kits, maybe there's a demand for that as well. There's some especially MIDI ones.
Yeah, no, there's some links coming out for the XOX box. willzyx.com collection, the XOX box. I think that's a French guy, apparently, they say.
And there was a market not long ago for 106 chips, wasn't there?
Yeah, voice chips. I was after one because I was trying to. I need to replace mine.
Yeah.
But anyway. Well, Alan, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate your time, and I wish you the very best of luck. And I hope that you can kind of make that work and be very interested. Yes, I'd like to see a Monopoly 10, please.
Monopoly. I'll get to work on that one for you.
That sounds absolutely awesome. But
could I just ask if people would like to visit my website and have a look at other modifications and whatnot I've made up on there? And I've got music and I've got my audio post-production stuff. That'd be really great.
Yep, audiopresto.com -presto. The link is up on the line now. Sorry, audio-presto.co.uk. It's right there. You can see it. And
whereabouts in the country are you, Alan?
I'm southeast UK, just north of Basingstoke, if you know Basingstoke.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. Not far from M3 or M4, so should be fairly easy.
Excellent. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Much appreciated. I'm really glad that was a very short notice appearance, and thank you very much. Now, I'm just going to...
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
Oh. Okay, right. I'm going to rejig this a little bit. Let's see how that's going. Okay. I think at this point I'll just go straight into an ad because then I can rejig all of the Skype while that's happening. Anyway, thanks to our sponsors. This is Yamaha, of course. Yamaha, World of Applications, a long-time sponsor of the podcast. This is a rather lovely animation they've made of all their applications. These are lots and lots of iPad applications. Over 20 available in the music category alone. From simple MIDI control apps, there's actually the Synth Arp and Drum Pad app, which has got a built-in synth with 61 sounds, 7 drum kits, 5 songs. You can kind of do your own composition on it, and also control external MIDI stuff. Very, very nice. The Setlist Organizer, which I really enjoyed, which allows you to send out MIDI program changes and have notes and what have you. What we're looking at is edit, control there, edit and control multi-edit. This is the multi-editor essential. Quick edit functions of mixer, effects and MEQ modes are compatible with the Motif, XF, MOX, S90X, S70XS, Motif XS and Rack XX. And also there's a voice editor essential, which gives you again voice effects, EQ, cutoff, resonance, envelope filter, portamento, XY pad for real-time control. There goes the set list, as you can see now. Actually, Motif again for the same models. Record and share with Cloud Audio Recorder. There's a whole bunch of applications, and they're all very reasonably priced, and some really good programming and nice work gone into them. I thoroughly recommend that you check them out. So once again, go to uk.yamaha.com for a world of applications. And thanks to Yamaha for this continued sponsorship of the show. Right then, folks, we lost Gaz. We lost your video. You seem to be. Let's have a look. See if I can get Gaz back. Gaz, are you there? Are you back again? Hello. No sign of Gaz. Have we got Gaz?
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You keep dropping in and out of focus today. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. It's just one of those days, isn't it? I mean, what can I say? Just that's the way it does go sometimes. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, Alan, once again. And we can go straight on to, oh, I like this one. Pictures of nice studios. Now, this has got rather an unweb-friendly title, which is, I won't pronounce it, but I'll switch to it. But these are some great workflow studio, studio porn. I'll just do that. And there's some just really amazing, it's a collection of, on Tumblr, of just some really lovely studios there. I don't know whether or not you recognise any of these. I suspect that, Rich, you might have actually been to some of these places. I think one of them looks a little bit like the top room in at Real World, but I'm not entirely sure. Some great stuff there. Actually, Rich, none of those are yours, are they?
No, I didn't see anything that I had designed up there. There is a picture of Power Station A, which is which I believe that particular picture is a studio out in Connecticut called Soniclist, because after Tony Bon Jovi left Power Station, he built Studio A into some place out east in Connecticut.
Some great
spaces.
I think
that's what that picture is.
Ah, okay.
Rather than the actual Studio A. Studio A was shrouded in mystery for decades, and they wouldn't allow photographs in there.
Really?
Yeah, it was seen as a proprietary design, and they didn't want it copied for a long time. Now there's pictures galore of the place, but back then it was like verboten to take a picture in the inside the studio rooms.
That's strange, isn't it? Whereas now everybody kind of just wants to promote the hell out of it so they can get some business. Because I mean, I guess a lot of these shots are studios that are perhaps, on not doing as well as perhaps they were in their golden years. Because as we know, some studios are struggling a little bit because we can all do it at home on our laptops, right?
I noticed a number of lovely Neve Melbourne consoles, which is like the one we have at Niles, and
let me see if I can
gorgeous
find one
to
there.
me.
I think
They've got
there's
some
one
really
there.
nice ones.
There's a TL Audio. I think
There was one a picture of black and white picture where there were two of them sitting side by side. That was just gorgeous.
Let me see if I can find
that was possibly the most drool-worthy moment for me.
That's very
which I guess kind of places me as pretty old school, but that's how I see it.
there are quite. I mean, they're pretty popular as studio desks, aren't they? These the Neves. I mean, is it? They were originally for broadcast, right?
Yes, they were 2-channel desks and intended for broadcast for the most part. With a couple of aux throws and stuff. And they usually get modified in some way or another. And we have ours. We have separate channel outputs for each of the 12 channels in ours. So if you wanted to use it as 12 Neve inputs to multi-track, you could do that. And it's a gorgeous piece. Do
you find that that some of this stuff? I mean, does it require an awful lot of continual sort of maintenance, or are they, once they've kind of been set up, do they kind of have how long is it between kind of squirts of Servicol or whatever it is that you might use?
Well, it's just that they tend to sit, and gear doesn't get better as it sits; it gets crustier as it sits. So we've recently, for example, replaced nearly all of the switches in the thing, which required having things custom manufactured and modified on an individual per part basis in order to make it work. I mean, it was an incredible labor undertaken by my pal Tim.
Yes, he's the guy that you did the studio in
at Niles. Well, also at Turks and Caicos. Yeah,
that's right. Where we did that fabulous.
Hit a remote, yeah.
Remote. Sorry, I'm trying to do this at the same time. It's very rude of me, but the Skype layout has changed, and I want to make sure I can get everybody in. So, excuse me for that. Right, Gaz, are you still there? I'm not sure if we've still got you or not. I can't tell.
I can hear you now.
Excellent. Did you get a chance to have a look at some of these beautiful studio photos? There's some just drool-worthy stuff. I mean, there's all manner of large and small format desks in there and just kind of wonderful workspaces. I mean, you've got a pretty good workspace yourself, but you must have looked at some of these and thought, oh, yes, I wouldn't mind one of those.
Oh, gosh, of course. Yeah, I was wondering. I mean, I saw recently some images of, is it a studio called the Production Rooms? I'm not sure where it actually is. Someone posted it on Facebook, and I don't know if that's on there, but that looks like an amazing studio. And to see these studios is just, it's funny, isn't it? We really do see big desks, and we see these things and think, wow, and it really brings out the uber nerds in us all, I think, because other people just see it as just like a big complicated thing with lots of knobs on it, but we're like, oh, I think it's so funny. And I mean, so I think that this page is definitely,
there's just so many of them, isn't there? I thought I'd looked at them all, but there's just so many. Look, there's that one. There's what's an SSL series with a what looks like a sleeping woman underneath them. I don't know whether that's an art installation or not quite sure, but some of these places look fabulous. Just really groovy.
I mean, there was this studio that I used to work in occasionally in a place called Caerleon in South Wales called Loco. And that was just such a beautiful studio, and unfortunately is not a studio anymore and has been converted, I think, into some sort of accommodation. And that just, everything about that studio was just absolutely beautiful. The whole aesthetics of it and the layout of it, it was just stunning. And such a pleasant place to be in, when you're working. And I think, the studios that I'm really liking when I see pictures of are ones that have got plenty of glass. I know glass.
Yeah, it's not
lots of.
It's not the best solution for acoustics. It's interesting. Isn't there? I think Dave Grohl is shooting some kind of a documentary about. Is it Sound City? Out near Vegas somewhere, in Nevada somewhere. Does that ring any bells, Rich? Is it Sound City? I forget the name of it, but they've got this sort of massive old knee valve desk that everybody just says is absolutely wonderful. I was just wondering how, in terms of, you were talking about having to spend money on servicing those things just to sort of get these things. I wonder what outside of the air conditioning bill of having a valve desk in a desert environment, it must just be an enormous investment in having somebody on call to keep it going, because I guess people are paying a ton of this stuff. A ton of money just to be in these places. Mark, have you got any insights into any of these spaces? I didn't recognise some of them. I did see one that looked like Metropolis because it had a big Focusrite desk in it, which are quite rare.
There is one that looks like Metropolis in there. I did notice one that looked like Ken Macbeth, because it had a big sign above Ken Macbeth's head pointing to him saying Ken Macbeth.
I haven't spotted that one yet.
I really liked that one. I don't know. I look at these things and I kind of go, yeah, okay, right. There's certain things about the recording industry for me that are iconic. So reel-to-reel tape recorders are one of them, I suppose. And I think, if I was to have the perfect studio environment, it wouldn't look like any of these. I would have a synth room like Ken Macbeth's room, and it would be in black and white like that. And I'd have a sign above my head that said Mark Tinley, I think. And then I'd probably have a vintage room with green desks with Bakelite dials. And then everything would have primary coloured buttons on it as well. And that would, I'd probably have some engineers in brown coats and black horn-rimmed glasses maybe helping me. Right?
What was the name? There was the Toe Rag Studio where Jack White, the White Stripes did some stuff. We did a little feature on that. Simon Power went up and did some a kind of meet and greet with the chap, and it was amazing. It was so retro, even down to the clothes the bloke who owned it would wear these kind of V-neck 1970s jumper and brown nylon trousers, and it was just so totally authentic.
Sometimes studios are all about psychology, and I think Gaz was absolutely right when he said people walk in there and they go, wow. And the kind of people that walk in there and go, wow, should be working in studios and not on laptops at home. And personally, my ideal recording space would be a huge, great, big, empty, minimalist room. And then aside from my vintage room and my synth room, and I would have a marble pillar that came up out of the middle of the room, and the room would be perfectly flat. And the marble pillar would come out the middle of the room with a laptop on it. And that would be it.
And there'd be a few
maybe
headphone
someone
ports.
might bring me a guitar, or maybe I'd do the guitars in the guitar room. I watched. Can you remember the film Diva?
Yeah.
There's a section in that film Diva when he goes back to his apartment, and his apartment is the entire floor of a warehouse with a cast iron bath in the middle of it, and he goes to have a bath. When he goes to have a bath, he puts this reel-to-reel tape machine on, and it's sitting on a marble pillar. And he listens to the diva, the opera singer, on this reel-to-reel tape. He's made a bootleg of her or something. Quite how he got the reel-to-reel, etc., etc. But that to me is there's something lying in the bath with a reel-to-reel tape recorder would be my psychologically ideal recording environment, and then this completely empty room which didn't have any acoustic colouring. And I know all of this is completely impossible, but and then there's one last little thing actually, and that is I want some black things kicking around with red, orange and green LEDs on with knurled aluminium knobs. So again, AMS, all the AMS gear to me is iconic. It's what you expect to see in a studio. So I expect to see reel-to-reel and lots of wood, I suppose. Beautifully polished pine everywhere.
I think that's a perfectly valid vision of the perfect studio, Mark, and I'm very glad that you were able to share that with you. I've just found the picture of Ken Macbeth. You're correct. It's him walking across the room with you probably can't see it because it's a bit.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, with him just kind of standing there looking at that massive 2600 clone. I think he's got possibly. It looks like a lovely Glaswegian apartment there.
There's just some bay window as well.
Oh look, there's that looks like Danny Bird, who's in Bath. That's a picture of Danny Bird in Bath. Somebody's obviously just gone through and made a Tumblr stream or of all the pictures he can find.
So Mark, based on that vision of what a studio should look like, how come Vince Clarke moved to New York? Did you see the place he had in Maine?
Oh, is that quite a recent thing?
My understanding is that Vince Clarke has packed it all up and brought it to New York City now. I could be wrong about that, but that's what it looks like from his website.
Oh, wow. That does seem...
And that was pretty close to the ideal. I mean, there weren't reel-to-reel tape recorders, and I don't recall any marble pillars and a completely acoustically neutral environment. However, there are certain aspects of what you just described that very much resembled what I thought I saw in that cabin that he had up in Maine.
Oh, right. Okay.
It was gorgeous, that thing.
That does seem a bit of a shame.
I asked I go, well, maybe he got lonely. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it did look very remote, but I'm guessing, it would have to be because it's just, well, I don't know why it would or wouldn't, but.
Because it's in Maine.
Wow. I've just scrolled down on this and I found a picture. Sorry, I've just completely changed the subject here, but I've just found a picture where it looks like this recording space, they've taken the desk out and they've put huge Samsung flat screens in, and then at the front of it there's this kind of log effect, like the bottom, like they cut off the bottom of a tree.
So no, I haven't seen that.
You've got to scroll down, and then it's kind of got like what looks a little bit like maybe a Pro Control or some kind of HUI, and
I may have gone past it already. I mean, there's just an endless stream. I don't know how many photos there are here, but there are.
Kind of HUI.
Some kind of HUI.
There's a subtitle for you right there.
Some kind of HUI. I like the sound of that, which ties in quite nicely with the because I know I've been going on and on about this Behringer X32 desk, but I finished my review or the second part of the review yesterday, and that's got HUI control. For those of you who are interested, beautiful stuff. I mean, Gaz, how much? Oh my lord, how much? Look at this place. Look, wait a minute, just check this out. This is just a warehouse full of synthesizers, loads and loads and loads. There's all the emulators. Does that look like the place that you described, Rich? You said there was a guy that you knew in LA somewhere, downtown LA, who had a place like that.
Well, no, his was not all set up like that.
Ah, okay. Worth a try.
Looks like a collection to rival that I saw, although rarely have I ever seen as many different modulars in one place as that guy had. But most of it was in like a huge, it was almost a warehoused closet.
Wow.
It was available to be taken out and used at any time, but it wasn't all like laying around set up.
I can't imagine. I mean, I imagine, when you consider that how many studios are going out of business and all this sort of old rat gear that, I'm probably thinking like the all of the sort of 80s digital stuff. It would be fairly cheap and easy to build a ridiculously impressive wall of 19-inch gear.
Yeah.
And just in terms of, here's my, decoration kind of style.
Well, he had 32 black-faced Akai samplers that had been painted black and re-silk screened all the graphics in white onto them.
Why ever not? That sounds like a plan.
I bought an S3200 ages ago for 75 quid. It's probably not worth that now, right?
I think I sold an S1000 for a bit more than that, hopefully.
And then I bought an R1000 reverb, a Yamaha R1000 1U rack-mounted reverb, which I still love the sound of. Except I don't really need it anymore because I impulse responsed it into the Waves thing and it sounds exactly the same. But I bought that for £10. So it would be very easy to do. You could probably, if you sat on eBay and you just waited for all the stuff that was local and for collection only and that people weren't willing to pay 30 quid postage on because, well, they're not.
Yeah, just drive around with your
drive around
pickup truck and chuck it in the back. Yeah, great idea. Why ever not?
But suddenly it's all going to become worth a whole load of money.
Exactly. You want to warehouse it. Gaz, are you? Have you got your eyes on any of that technology that you're sort of warehousing to cash in on the next big thing?
Say that again. Sorry.
Are you warehousing any slightly obsolete and out of fashion technology that you're going to cash in when it becomes back in fashion?
Oh, not really. I did sort of sell a load of stuff way back when. That's kind of problem, isn't it? You know, with computers, I've got loads of old computers that will
they're not worth anything
ever. No, guitars. Yeah, that's more.
Yeah, well, you're probably right. Actually, I've got a VL Tone, Rich. I was just trying to reach for it, but it's not immediately to hand, which is a shame. There should always be a VL Tone to hand, I think.
My friend Frank, though, he does collect stuff from. I think I mentioned it before on the show, but he collects stuff from the late 90s, from the 80s and the early 90s, and he's got a big collection. He's got over 20 reverb units, and he collects reverbs, which is a strange fetish. But he also buys kind of like MIDI stuff from this really unloved age, this kind of like late 80s, early 90s. It's just sort of it's like the kind of the pariah of music from that time. You know, things like Ensonics and I'm trying to think what else now, but stuff that's just
nobody wants.
No one wants.
It is amazing though when you get, you know, how it goes out of fashion. But then sometimes, you know, when you're exposed to it and you listen to it, you go, bloody hell, that sounded great. You know, I mean, it's got an aspect to it. I mean, but you know, I guess we can't have everything, can we? But I just wondered. I mean, do you spend much time on your working environment these days, or are you more about the workflow, Gaz?
Yeah, I mean, workflow for me is everything. So things which kind of interrupt workflow I'm not so interested in. But I mean, like for instance, I've got like a pedal board with lots and lots of pedals on that I've got plumbed into my rack and into my system here. So, and I can just, you know, I just move things around, plug things in, and sort of have a lot of fun with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm always looking to try and make this workflow as kind of efficient and smooth as, you know, and fun. I'm always looking to try and make things fun. So when things aren't fun, that's when I relegate them to the closet. You know,
got you.
You know, but I've always got this thing. I'm always looking at new stuff all the time. Not just
you don't say. I've noticed that about you.
new ways of doing things, you know, and sort of, and you know, I think. I do like old synths a lot, and I would love to be able to afford to have a good collection of them, but I'm sort of still more interested in things that are happening now and, you know, new ways of being expressive with stuff, and, you know, still waiting for my Cuneo. That's still not
yeah. I'm trying to, actually, how do I do that? I'm trying to, hold on one second. I'm going to try and post this into the chat room. There.
Oh no, the chat room. I forgot the chat room.
Oh, they've only been saying bad things about you, Mark. You don't want to go there.
No.
That's not true. Rich, I was asking you because, you know, you've designed these workspaces, several of them, and presumably the one that you're in. When does it get to the point where you sort of think, actually, I need to incorporate some of this new stuff in, or do you kind of leave enough space and room to maneuver so that you can change the workflow or modify it as you go along? I mean, how do you kind of design that into a space?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because the answer to your question, when do you decide that, in my case, is sort of right now, because I now have 2 new pieces of gear that I want to learn and incorporate into my workflow, and I don't really have any place to put them. So I'm having to think about how to modify what I have to accommodate them, and to what extent I need them available all the time or not. Like, right. I have to really think about how they're going to be accommodated in my workflow. And so I'm tempted to come up with a more temporary solution in the short term to see how I find myself using these things.
Racks on wheels. Things on wheels that you can just wheel about. That's what I do over here. No, I just put wheels on everything.
Well, we have hardwood floors, and wheels don't usually work real well. But what I do have is the keyboard stand is on these Teflon pucks that you put on the bottom of like furniture when you're using hardwood floors, and they allow you to freely slide things without scratching the floor, which is a beautiful thing. So yeah, it may be slide away stuff with, you just connect up the power in MIDI and off you go. It may, or USB or whatever. That's the other thing is I'm having long run USB issues, and I have to solve those as well. But to answer your question specifically for me right now, because I'm about to start wanting to incorporate some new pieces of hardware.
Is that machine? Was that something that you're bringing in?
Machine, and I got a Tractor S4. And I don't know how much I'm going to use each one or both, or I need to begin to get conversant in these things. So, and I know we've got some friends in the chat room who are. I know Ken, for example, is deep in machine. I watch his videos, and I'm about to start diving in myself.
Yeah, I've been having lots of fun with the machine. Actually, I kind of have accepted its shortcomings. I know what it is much more now. I think.
Yeah, because when we spoke last, you were a bit disappointed that it didn't fit your expectations, right?
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of workflow, trying to find a way of integrating it into my workflow has been such a head scratcher. It's. I've sort of more or less figured it out now, and thanks to Ken Flux in the chat room as well. He was really helpful actually. He really gave me some great pointers. But just trying to kind of get it to work in a way that it's been challenging because it's most enjoyable when you use it standalone, and and you just you're just in there, and it's really cool. You're in there. And you're not looking at the computer screen, and you just kind of, and everything's easy to hand, and it's really inspiring, and it's really good fun. But then just trying to sort of then go, okay, let's bring it into a bunch of tracks, or let's combine it with another project that I'm working on, and then inserting it as a VST insert. Currently, as it stands, all the transport controls don't work. They're so you're still having to sort of.
That's a shame. Is it the sort of thing that you kind of would need to run on a separate machine and treat that as a separate instrument and insert that in somehow?
Well, I mean, I've tried different ways of doing it now. I've tried using it sort of running at the same time, but not inside of the music software, and using Soundflower to sort of route the outputs into, in my case, using Ableton Live. To get the most out of the machine, and having Ableton Live slave to the machine. So and that works quite well. But again, when you want to sort of start to automate stuff or make a mix, you then kind of go, you're dealing with two separate systems. So which makes me then want to go, okay, let's reinsert it then as a plugin and work inside the door, and then. One of the things that's really nice when you're using it as a hardware thing, you can just route audio into it. When you want to do that, when it's inside the door,
it's quite complicated.
Set up new tracks and route those tracks through, and all those things just really contradict this lovely workflow idea, of this all-in-one unit. So that's been my main issue, finding this way. Now, Ken's told me that the new 1.8 version, which is about to drop pretty soon, will remedy some of this, so I'm looking forward to that. I think there's going to be, what they're doing is they're splitting the controller into two things. So the transport part will actually operate the door. Will be like a kind of controller for the door, whereas the rest of the machine will then be as it normally is. So.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's almost like having the controls and the keyboard separate on. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But again, just because we're talking about workflow, it's that thing. It's like when something is so tricky to kind of get into your workflow, that's when you stop
I
using
understand
it.
What you're saying. It's definitely worth checking out though. as a workflow. I mean, these problems are always kind of. I mean, it's one thing I'm constantly doing because I shoot myself over there, and I have to figure out ways of making it all work and the least amount of journeys back to the workstation when I set up cameras, so I can just shoot without having anybody else involved. And I mean, I find that quite fascinating, just making the workspace kind of suit what you need. But it's the sort of thing that, if you haven't defined what it is you do totally, I mean, that's the thing, like you were saying, Rich. You know, the fact that you've got a very specific kind of need for that, for your general workflow. You know, trying to build all of that redundancy so you can do anything you want is the tricky part. You know, and it's not an easy thing because you will have to make some compromises down the way. But looking at some of those studio pictures, there are just so many in there that people have made absolutely no compromise. And the ones I really appreciate are the really messy ones, because they're the ones that are obviously being used. That's the thing you got to remember. The ones that are messy are generally being used. I don't know whether or not that's true of everybody else's space. I'm guessing, Mark, you might have a theory that might suit your mentality as well, perhaps, eh?
Only got to look at our fridge, actually.
It's just a living, organic thing.
Yeah, it's just like everything. I'm constantly in trouble for the fact that there's just bits of music gear piled up all around the house, and motorbike parts as well.
A great combination.
Starting to hold my head in shame here.
I'm just thinking what we could look at next. I've just realised that once again, due to my last-minute preparation here. Sorry, Rich, were you about to chip in there?
Well, it sort of dovetails into that group of cats who play all this native instrument stuff live. What was that about?
Mostly Robot. I might just need a quick. I might just quickly need to go and modify something there, because I haven't actually got. No, I can do that.
I see.
No, it's all right. I can do it. No, what am I thinking? I can do that easily. I'm just going to open that link there. It's all right. I've got it. I've got it covered. It's going to be fine. If I bring that over here, then I can put that in there, and then we can look at it. That's cool. That's excellent. Right, so I'm going to play that now. This is mostly Robot behind the scenes. The supergroup. Sonar 2012.
Tim Exile, give it up.
So yeah, there's basically Tim Exile, Jamie Liddell,
Mr. Jimmy, come on, from Nashville, what's up? My name is Jeremy Ellis. Yeah.
Jeremy Ellis, Dr. Jimmy, DJ Shifty.
Mostly Robot King, Mr. Jamie Liddell, what's up? I want to thank you so much.
I won't play the whole thing. I better pause that. Don't want to get clobbered by that. This is quite an interesting idea, really, because it's like a supergroup put together by a manufacturer. I was trying to think of any other possible instance that was the case, and they basically just they're kind of using the controklerism aspect of what they do to create this kind of supergroup. Jamie Liddell, of course, is the amazing singer. Tim Exile is just a sort of generally creative chap who uses a lot, who created the mouth and the finger for native instruments, which are kind of like reactor. Standalone reactor things. Dr. Jeremy Ellis is just a kind of nutty finger drummer, I think would be a fair way to put him. DJ Shifty and Mr. Jimmy, who seems to be doing the keyboards. I don't know, what do you think about this, Rich? It sort of seems like it's kind of manufactured, but yet it's kind of okay. I can't think of any other instance where that's happened. Can you?
I loved it, to answer your first question. And as to manufactured, the fact that they play everything live, and I mean, finger drummer, good God. His drumming is amazing.
It is amazing, yeah. He's a fantastic drummer.
The fact that it's all being triggered from, oh, yeah, sure, it's the band full of guys who push buttons. I like the way they characterize themselves as, I don't know, white geeks or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But I thoroughly enjoyed this thing, was intrigued by it, would even probably, with some assistance, go see it.
Well, the what you were saying about that, the instruments are only synced by the human element. No MIDI clock or prepared grid obstructing their creativity.
No, they're
apparently.
playing.
Yeah, which is very unusual. They come with a lot of flack, though. I mean, it's definitely sort of it's sort of got that kind of. It reminds me a little bit of those kind of drum machines don't make real music. Samplers are killing me. Do you know what I mean? It's almost got an element of that argument with people that it's just sort of saying they're just button pushers. But I mean, frankly, most of it is. MIDIs really these days, right?
Future Man's been triggering MIDI drums from a modified syntax on stage with Bela Fleck and the Flecktones, which is some pretty highbrow, highfalutin fusion jazz music for 20 years now.
Yeah.
So that part ain't new.
No,
It's
I suppose
great that
not.
these guys are so good at it, and I'm not in any way meaning to discredit or dishonor what's being done here. I'm just saying there's a history of this, and I think we're well beyond the is it not music argument.
I think I would agree. I'm Jamie Lee. The only thing I must admit, because I was watching some of the performances today on YouTube, I was looking around, and the only thing that missed for me was a guitar. I just sort of felt like if they'd had a guitarist kind of grooving along with it, it would somehow, because we got this.
Could.
I know they could. Yeah, I mean, it would just. I think that'd be just really brilliant. Some kind who was doing some MIDI kind of stuff.
I want the bass gig with them. That's
Maybe you should be working on that then. Because you've been working on your own system, haven't you? So, what do you think about it, Gaz? I mean, obviously you're now into Machine. We've just been talking about it. I mean, it's taken on a bit of a life of its own, hasn't it? I'm trying to think of what it reminds me of something, but I can't think what it is because they're obviously very like-minded people and obviously mates and what have you.
Yeah, I mean, this is so exciting. I just thought it was brilliant when I heard about it because these guys, they are all great individual talents and are brilliant sort of exponents of using technology in really interesting, creative ways. To put them together and then to make a real band out of it, I think it's really cool. I think it's okay that there's no guitar there, though, in a way, because I think
they could use Guitar Rig as Flux 302 said in there, because that's a Native Instruments product.
And just to come back to the point you were saying about it. The corporate tie-in about like Native Instruments kind of putting it together. I think in this case, I think it's absolutely brilliant, because, maybe you would need something like that to get these disparate talents all working together in a single unit. But I thought that the choice of cover version of like Window Licker, the Aphex Twins song, and doing a cover version of, I think the
Herbie Hancock, they do Rocket, as well.
So I think that's brilliant, taking these iconic sort of electronic tunes and playing them live, but playing them live with this kind of band that redefines, rather than there being the bass player, the guitarist, etc. Well,
it's interesting. They've been given a kind of brief, I guess, and have just sort of gone, right, let's do this. I mean, that's what it looks like, and they've come up with something quite cool. I forget the name of the actual. The lighting guys, because they just take their cues from the MIDI CC that goes out. That's the only MIDI that's flying around, goes to the lighting rigs and the video and running all of that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool.
Right, and just seeing, rather than there being this, an equivalent of a regular band, like Tim Exile's role seems quite interesting in that he takes the audio feeds of all the players and then mashes that up and sort of, so he's kind of, almost like a dub mixer on stage, and just think it's a real interesting band dynamic going on there.
I wonder what it's like actually, because you get whether you get the same kind of buzz from working on that level in that sort of almost IT kind of way as you would from physically playing an instrument, whether you get the same sort of feedback or whether because you have to focus so hard on the technique that it detracts from the experience of the performer. I wonder if there's anything in that. I don't know.
Well, they seem to be playing with a fair amount of creative freedom as they go. They're not inhibited by the technological aspects of what they're doing at all, which is what's so impressive about it. They're really expressive through it as a medium, and they don't seem to be encumbered by, which button to press or what's going to happen when I do this at all. They completely seem to have it down.
I wonder if they just sort of come with their rigs set up as exactly, as separate entities and just kind of work within that and just change the sound sets, because obviously each of their own setups is going to be very particular to them and very kind of, they'll know inside out, presumably.
My understanding, based on the video I watch, is that it is exactly that. Each guy has his own setup, and the only thing that really ties them together is, I think, a single MIDI clock feeds them all so that when they want to synchronize certain things, they can, but that they're actually not playing sequences and that they're performing live. So I would think that MIDI clock would have to be responsive to tap tempo.
Yeah.
So that they could keep it updated to where they are right now in the jam.
That's going to be a very interesting technical challenge, I'd imagine, having that sort of yes or no. You know,
Oh, and furthermore,
when I
they had
want
video guys behind that
Yeah, yeah.
responding to controller motions and, parameter changes. And the guy grabs the filter cutoff knob, something changes up in the video. They're taking MIDI from everything to control aspects of their live video presentation. It was brilliant. I was very impressed.
I think they're doing a few more gigs about the place. I know, Mark, is this sort of thing that, would you like to go and see this? I mean, I'd be interested to know how it's put together, perhaps, rather than watch the performance. I don't know.
I like some of the noises they're making. I have to say that. I really like all of that glitchy kind of stretchy kind of ground up kind of audio. So I really like that. I like the fact that they're doing it live, and they are doing it live. I mean, it's kind of, this is a sort of a weird argument that's been going on a long time. And I must admit that I did something similar, but at the end of the 80s, my brother Adam heralded me as Tinley, the sampling champion of the universe, because I used to take a feed from the two singers in the band Discord Datcord, and I used to put it through a whole load of samplers and play it off pads and sort of play almost like just play lots of samples of them back in as the backing vocals, which was kind of weird. And we had backing tracks and stuff. And I always felt a bit disingenuous doing it. But I have to say, it's not an easy task to take things and use them and put them back into what's going on and kind of create with it. And then sort of later, my brother obviously had that big hit with NRG, which was all done in an SQ80 as patterns. And he just basically used to play the whole stuff, a whole set out live of different sequences and flicking around buttons and stuff. And I used to think, oh, you're not really playing, I suppose. And then I tried doing it. I mean, it makes what DJs do look ridiculously simple, because he's got like all eight different lines of music running in his mind. He knows when they come in and out. He's got to flick between different screens and switch different things in and out. And then he's got to do the same with a drum machine and all the drums for live. And these guys are doing something very similar, is
Right.
what I'm noticing.
It's sort of, I guess
They've just taken it to another level.
It's like that when we've seen things where people are doing performances with loopers like Susie Conrad, that sort of thing, which is just so technologically intensive and really advanced, but still kind of very...
Well, Ed Sheeran's another one. He makes the most unbelievable musical decisions. He must pre-plan where his loops are going to go way before he gets to that point in the song. So the songs are almost written in a way that it means that he's dumped the backing vocal for that particular section of the song in the looper sort of ahead of time. So when he gets to it, it's like the amount of stuff they must be tracking and thinking about to make it work. And then this is a band of people doing it who are all doing it in time with each other. I mean, it's like, it's...
Harry mentioned something in the chat room, which is kind of an interesting point. It's nothing compared to mastering a violin or whatever, which I suppose...
I disagree, completely disagree. I think it is everything compared to mastering a violin. And I think, you might spend years and years learning to use a violin, but if you get really into this, into the complexity of these and master them as instruments, it's as hard, if not harder.
Well, it's interesting because we've got a piece coming up very shortly with Laura Escudé that Gaz very kindly came in and shot an interview with her. It's going to be hitting the streets fairly soon, and she's just purely about this live performance with controllerism and what have you, and creating loops live and just doing it in that kind of way, which I'm guessing she could have been a contender for a similar sort of band setup, could have quite easily been as part of this kind of thing. So I mean, there's like a whole breed, isn't there, of this sort of. And I suppose the idea that we've got to the point where there is like a supergroup of controllerists or people who are doing live manipulation is the interesting part as well.
I think the key thing to the whole thing is try doing it. And if you don't have any musical mind, so if you can't track harmonies in your mind and know what's going to happen when you put things together, then it's all going to go horribly wrong and you're just going to make a noise and a mess. You also need to have absolutely, like, unbelievably impeccable timing, not just like screeching something out on a violin. Like, I probably don't want to go there because I'm going to like cause a flame war in the chat room. But in terms of like hitting that button on time, you're playing with MIDI clock, and you need to land your finger on the button at the right point in time that the machine picks up on the clock at the right moment, and that kind of timing is pretty bloody tight timing. And yeah, okay, so you're playing a button and not a string or a drum or something.
Yeah, so anyway, I think Rich looks like he's ready to come in there.
Well, they're not really playing to anything except each other in that band, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. I think you're right.
In other words, there's nothing sequenced and nothing. Well, they're taking live samples of some things that other people are doing and using them, which is, I think, the aspect of it you were talking about before. But there's not a clock that's running it. Pardon?
You've still got to, I mean, so they don't have any sequences clicked.
Correct.
Because all that
correct
stuff. I mean, that's all got clock running through it. Even if it's a delay clock, there's still
they do have MIDI clock apparently, but I suspect it's being controlled by tap tempo input because, according to what they say, there are no sequences driving this thing. They're driving it as players. It's all played.
Well, I'd be very interested. Maybe we'll get the chance to see a kind of proper tech breakdown. Because I mean, if it's a sort of native instrument supergroup, then surely we should be able to see. I have a feeling that maybe Future Music did something a bit deeper with them, which I haven't had a chance to check out, and I haven't found it online anywhere. But one to watch, and I'm sure there's going to be more content coming out that will explain a little bit more about what they're up to and exactly how it does. Or maybe Rich, you already know something, right?
Well, I only know what I learned in the preparation for the show, but there was that much. And speaking to the other part of Mark's point, when I saw Global Drum Project, and I think I've mentioned this before, about 4 or 5 years ago, they had a guy on stage called Juno Sharp running Ableton Live, and in real time on stage, taking live performances, looping them, and feeding them back to these guys that they would then jam over. And he was an active musical participant in creating the layers upon which they would build the performances. It was really fascinating.
If the guy wasn't a musician, it wouldn't work, right?
Oh, I agree. No, and he was really good at it, and it kind of blew my mind that night at the way that worked. Yeah,
what's that called again, Rich? Let's see if I can find some links to that. Global
Drum Project, and the guy who did the work on stage with them is called Juno Sharp.
Juno Sharp. All right, well, I'll check that out and see if I can put a link into the show notes.
Did he work with Roger Taylor for a while? Was that the same guy, or was that someone else?
Don't know. I think he's from the Pacific Northwest, this guy.
Oh, no, not then.
Well, it's obviously garnered quite a lot of interest, and I would like to see some more of that. But before we go, I just wanted to draw your attention to the Iris competition that we've been running in conjunction with Isotope. I neglected to mention it last week on the podcast because it was all kind of crazy, chaotic with Darren Price from Underworld. I just wanted to show you we've got quite a lot of entries here. This is the Fine Music and Anything competition, sound design, everything even, sound design competition. We've got a whole, I don't know how many tracks we got. This is 30 or 40, I think, but I just wanted to draw your attention to that. If you go to sonicstate.com/iris, you can download a free copy of Iris, and there are some amazing prizes up for grabs. I mean, it's like they're giving away like 6 or 7 grand's worth of software as prizes for this. This is pretty amazing, really. And we got some really good entries here coming in from all sorts of people. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to check any of these out. I'll see if I can play anything. I think there's some that all been made with Iris. You can just download a free copy of Iris. It lasts for 10 days, and you can make yourself. Let me see if I can find some lovely, really quite beautiful things that I'm guessing I haven't spoken to the other members of the podcast, but I think we may be involved in judging if anybody fancies getting aboard. Lots and lots of things that have been made beautifully. And it ends on the 30th of August. So there's still plenty of time to go. Like I say, top prize, 2 grand. Then there's 5 categories: ambient, pad, melodic, and sonic talk. And then there's just a general sort of most popular. And they all get a grand's worth of Isotope software. And the winner, the overall winner, gets to be a guest on the Sonic Talk Show. Woohoo! And can tell us exactly how they did it, and all of those good things. And so please do go and check it out. We've got a group on SoundCloud as well where you could just upload. It's all done via Dropbox, and you don't have to have a SoundCloud account. You just drop it in there, give your email, and then you end up basically with a SoundCloud account to enter. So please do go and try it out. There's some lovely stuff in here, actually, I must say. and some very unusual stuff. And I think we spoke with you, Mark. It's very tempting. You're obviously very tempted by this sort of thing, but
I haven't done it. I've been very good.
Wow, that's kind of crazy. I don't know what that is. Mad stuff. Anyway, I'm sorry. I will stop that now. That's probably a good time to stop that. But guys, I don't think we've got time for any more topics, but I do want to thank you very much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure to have you back again. And Rich, it's been a long time since I've had you on the show, and I'd like to obviously apologise for my misrepresentation of your portrayal of a medieval country during the Olympics, which is but as it happens, have you been watching the Olympics? It's been absolutely fantastic. We are third in the medal table.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to see that, and I was thrilled to see that Andy Murray actually won finally.
Woohoo, that was a beautiful moment. And not only
that,
it
had to be
a bit of crowing. Apparently, that one statistic is if British cycling were a country, it would be like 9th in the medal table, just with the medals it's won.
I also heard that Yorkshire would be 10th in the medal table as well if it was a country.
Oh, really? What? Because of all the people who have actually, all the Yorkshire men and women who've won the medals?
Yeah, my Yorkshire buddy told me that with pride.
Interesting.
Well, I developed a theory the other day that the perfect place for the UK Olympians to train would be Heathrow Airport.
Apart from, I guess the runway would kind of make a lot of sense.
No, just sprinting from terminal to terminal, trying to make your connecting flights.
It may, there's those signs. Please allow up to 25 minutes for you to get to your terminal, because it may be a very long way away. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You make a left turn and it's half a mile.
Yeah.
And you make a left turn and it's half a mile.
Yeah.
And then you stop at immigration, you stand on a line, you make a left turn and it's half a mile. I'm telling you, this is where you train the Olympic team.
Yeah, well, there's a good idea there. But anyway, sorry, go, Gaz.
When I came back from Japan, I'd sort of like deliberately booked my sort of bus to be about like 3 hours after my plane got in, just to allow for all of this kind of Olympics related stuff, because it was like last week I came back and I was out of there after I landed. I was out of there in 10 minutes.
Oh wow, that's great.
It's faster than I've ever been in Heathrow before, so don't know why that is.
Well, I went up to London last week to visit Jason Bradbury and give him a hand with his studio setup, and we went in the Olympic lane. That's about as close as I've got to it. And it was fine. I mean, didn't seem to have any trouble. All I had to do was actually get off the train and go and find a taxi. So it wasn't particularly... and the traffic didn't seem all that bad going out to his place. So, yeah, it was all pretty cool.
There was one thing I wanted to very quickly mention, and that was the sound system at the Fuji Rock Festival. The main PA was the most immense sounding PA I have ever heard in my entire life.
Really?
Yeah. So maybe for a future episode we can find out what that was, because I think it was brought in either by requested by the Stone Roses or Radiohead.
Okay.
But wow, I tell you what.
Sounded good, did it? Well, it's always... I was outdoors, right? Because I had a concert experience earlier in the week. I went to see Liz Fraser of the Cocteau Twins play in Bath, who hasn't done a gig for 15 years. And
yes.
Did she sing words?
I don't know if she did or not. I couldn't hear her.
Oh.
In fact, I think I had something set up, but I don't think I've got it on running anymore. But I have actually. Let me see if I can play it. Because I found actually somebody uploaded a bit of the audio, and it's really of no fault of anybody. But it was just what made me realise is when you have a really quiet singer, she was very, very, very nervous. She hasn't gigged for 15 years. And sings about as loud as a moth's wing. Anyway, I don't know how you get around that. They had Rob Allen was doing the mixing. Sorry, go, Gaz. Was that you, Gaz, just going?
I had a little bit of contact about this Liz Fraser gig. The keyboard player, Thibault Sandra, he asked me, they were using Mainstage, and he contacted me after my experience with Popeye, the opera, about just sort of tweaking the whole kind of... So they're running Mainstage for all their...
I thought I spotted that.
Yeah, so that was my little connection with that. But
it was beautiful to. I mean, I don't know, Rich, if you're familiar with the Cocteau Twins at all, and Liz Fraser. I mean, she sang on Teardrop, which is the classic Massive Attack track with the harpsichord introduction. I mean, you will if you've heard it, you'd recognise it again. And she's legendarily timid, and live, honestly, it was. When they started playing, it was a bit like being at a band rehearsal where they didn't have a PA, they just had a monitor system and they were at the other end of the room. And the poor front of house guy would have been, I don't know how much gain he had, but when he heard her sing, it was so quiet. Yet when she said a word, it blew the mic amp up because of the dynamic, the dynamics in her voice and the way that it must have been and obviously I think she was, still building her confidence.
Was Steve Hackett playing?
I couldn't recognise if it was. I mean, I guess it may have been, but I don't know if it was or not.
The Genesis guitarist, Steve Hackett.
It may have been. I couldn't tell from where I was, because I literally, this is what happened to me. I was down at the sports centre with my daughter, taking her to a swimming party, and I happened to notice there was a poster on the wall because Jane got asked by some people saying, "Where's Elizabeth Fraser playing?" And she came to me and said, "Is that somebody famous?" And I went and looked and I went, "Oh my God!" And I went over to the place and said, "Are there any tickets left?" And he said, "Yeah, I think we got 6 or 7, but you have to order them online." So I'm there on my phone, and I did it on them, and I got a ticket, and I can't believe it. It was like 6:30, and the show started at 7 o'clock, and I got a ticket, and I was in. And in fact, I bumped into Dave Robinson there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, she is extraordinary, and she has the most beautiful, beautiful voice.
She sings like an angel.
Half get nervous.
I know. I really felt for her, but I mean, I think that's the first show for 15 years, and she did a couple more afterwards. It just, I'd like to see her do more because it's just so beautiful. But anyway, I don't know what you can do with that sort of thing because I mean, both front of house. I mean, front of house was feeding back. That's how much gain they had to put on the mics, but they actually use an acoustic drummer, which I thought was perhaps not the best idea considering how much noise that's going to make. But anyway, just thought I'd throw that in. If you get a chance to check out, there's quite a lot of bootleggy YouTube recordings on YouTube, which of course I can't condone in any way. But if you want to hear what it sounded like and perhaps have your opinion based on it. Anyway, Rich Hilton, thank you very much for joining us too. I'm glad to see you back, and I'm very pleased that all is well with you in the world. And I'm guessing you're back in the studio, right?
Oh, I will be.
Excellent.
Right now, I'm in hibernation.
Resting after a busy period. Well, anyway, Rich, Hiltonius.com, thank you very much for joining us. Much, much appreciated. And we'll go over to Mark Tinley there, likebeing.com. Thank you for getting back, and you're wonderful. Say thank you to Gina for letting you use her marvellous laptop, which you obviously chose wisely there because the video quality is awesome.
It's excellent, isn't it?
It really is excellent, yeah. What make is it, by the way? I'd like to know.
It's a Packard Bell.
Ah, okay, Packard Bell.
Yeah, so you're very welcome. I did have something that I needed to tell you about that happened in the music industry that I found out about, and I've been racking my brains for the last 10 minutes trying to remember what it was, so it'll have to be next week, I guess.
Well, I look forward to that, and I will, of course, be happy to hear your thoughts on that. But thank you very much for joining us, Mark. That was great.
Yeah, very well.
And we'll say goodbye to Gaz Williams there, who's fresh back from...
Hang on, I've remembered what it was.
Okay, well, all right, we'll go there. Well, I'll come back to you in a sec, Gaz. Okay, fire away then.
I just wanted to mention the Beatles Complete on ukulele has now been completed. So there's 185 tracks, which this chap called Dave Barrett has done, which is like pretty much every Beatles song that ever was, which has been done on the ukulele. So if you just type the Beatles Complete on ukulele, it's very easy to find on Google, and it's all free at the moment. So you can download the entire 184 tracks with one click from iTunes at the moment. So it's really worth checking out because it's just such an interesting and different take on all of those songs that that's it really.
That sounds great. Is it all sort of in a Frank Sidebottom style, or has it got a bit more of
No, it's really diverse. And the Cynthia Lennon's on there. Deepak Chopra, the kind of new age kind of guru guy, he's on there. But then there's lots of musicians who we kind of all know who can I think of? Like Curtis King, who is a soul singer, but was a backing vocalist.
Oh, right.
Duran
Fantastic.
There's lots of people like that, people who are quite well known in their own right, but not mega famous, but kind of who you would know their name if you heard it.
Oh.
So they do a ukulele version of Revolution Number 9 then?
Yep.
Wow. The complete
Go
works.
check it out. It's so cool. It's really.
I will send us a link and I'll put that in the
it's
show notes as well if I get the chance. Thank you very much, though. Great. I'm glad you remembered that, Mark. And well, we'll come to you, Gaz, and say thank you also for joining us. Fresh back from Japan. It'd be great to have a chat with you offline. We can maybe. I know you've been checking out Aurea. Is that right? The iPad recording system.
Yep, I've been, and I did some recording with it when I was over in Japan. I've been putting it through its paces, and yeah, a very impressive piece of software it is.
Brilliant. Well, we'll look forward to that for a Sonic Touch future episode. That'll be fantastic. Anyway, that's it for Sonic Talk this week. That was Sonic Talk number 278. Goodness me. I think I'll play out with a little bit more of the Juno 2012, if I can. I think it's going to play, or have I just crashed the system? Let's have a look. There we go. And I'll just fast forward it a bit because we heard a little bit of it. I'm just going to... Some great sounds that came out of it. I think they were further on. There we go. They were the bell-like ones that you mentioned. Anyway, this was the Juno 2012 made by Alan Dicker of audio-presto.co.uk.